The sunrise came over the sky before Elena could have known it and the rest of the group or began to awaken. She woke up to find Milo snuggled up to her. She elbowed him in the ribs and loudly complained, "I told you not to do that anymore." Milo's head fell back with a defeated look on his face. It was then that Adam spoke up and he said that the group would have to continue along the road. He said that long and we will be in the town of Blackberry. Adam further elaborated and said that Blackberry was the halfway point between his farm and the entrance to the Wawa Desert. As a group began to move out, Elena could easily notice that the brooding of Lockhart had greatly diminished. So as they walked along the path, Elena approached Lockhart and engaged him in conversation. Lockhart spoke of how he still felt so empty knowing how he lost his wife, but he had come to the realization as he slept the following night that helping Elena and the rest of the group was the best he could possibly do to honor her memory. He went on and said that she would be ashamed of me folding into a bowl like I have to last a couple of days. Elena, who had been feeling awkward around the man who she thought condemned her to death, gave him a half-hearted hug and held him, but she appreciated any help that he could provide her or Milo. It was then walking to ask about her mother's journal. He said, "You've had a thing for a few days now, you must have learned something." He probed for an answer. Elena hesitated and then she said, "Yes, I have discovered a few things, but I'm not willing to share all the details yet. One thing I know for sure from reading my mother's journal is that my uncle Eric is still alive and that he went into exile after the riot 10 years ago. My best guess is that he made his way to Wawa after his banishment, so I figure that Milo's plan to make it Oasis Red might be the perfect place to look for my uncle." As the fellowship came upon the outskirts of Blackberry, they could see huge crowds crowding around the gate. As they approached the people, Adam asked what was going on. A few of the peasants turned around and answered the priest of the Red Flame. "He has come to purge our village of the evil spice that has plagued our crops." Lockhart asked what it had to do with all these people. Some other peasants answered, "We're here to see the execution." Elena chimed in and said that made her feel sick that these people thought watching someone die was entertainment. The fellowship went back and forth to the crowd until they could see the courtyard of the city where the mock execution will take place. The elderly man that was referred to as the priest of the Red Flame had a young teenage girl tied to the back of a wagon as he began to spout off all of the supposed sins the young girl had committed. Elena approached the man, demanding to know the meaning of the way he was treating this young girl. "Hold your tongue, woman," the man lashed back at Elena. He continued, "It is not your place to question me. Your place is in the kitchen just like every other wench. It is the only place they are useful well in, and in the bedroom." It was that comment that had driven Milo to reach for his sword. Elena put her on his and shook her head. It was then that Lockhart spoke up, repeating Elena's question on what proof the man had that this young girl was to blame for the crops and that she was unspiced. With that, the priest to the Red Flame snapped his fingers and 2 of his lackeys came from behind the wagon, throwing a black cauldron to the ground. "There's your proof," the man explained, "a vile concoction from the evil woman who lays with demons." The cauldron spilled over as it was slung to the ground. Out of it poured a liquid and bones could be seen as they spilled onto the mud. The priest of the Red Flame continued to see the bones there on the ground. "A cat, the woman boils her own cat to cast an evil spell upon our town." Adam laughed and held his gut as he pointed at the bones and said, "Those are chicken bones. This poor girl has simply fixed herself a meal." "How dare you?" the priest of the Red Flames land. "I will have you and your whole party tried and executed with this spice if you continue to interfere further." It was then the Walkway spoke up again and he said, "You are obviously a man of the gods, my dear preacher. So I will assume you are familiar with the law of the land and the fact that the girl is within her rights to have a trial before anyone lays a hand on her." "Very well," the priest in the red cloak agreed. "A trial by contest," Milo interjected as he drew his sword and dared any of the priest's lackeys to challenge him in the duel. The priest left it clear to me as a young man that you are very versed in the use of that sword, and I would be foolish to choose such competition for your party to prove this witch is innocent. No, as the law dictates, it is my decision on which competition shall decide the spiced innocence." He continued to look behind you. Where are you, travelers? Inside the fire pit behind you are white-hot horseshoes, better than sitting in the fire for quite some time. If you wish to prove this spiced is innocent, one of you will simply need to reach into the fire, grab the horseshoe and bring it before I show me your hand. If you have not been burnt, and the gods will all have been shown that this girl is not unspiced and is innocent of these crimes. Elena could clearly see Milo calculating on if he could pull off such a task without getting burned. As he began to reach in the fire, John put his hand on my left shoulder and shook his head. With that, John said, "This one will be my boy." It was then John walked right up to the fire, put his hand straight in and pulled the white-hot horseshoe out of the flame. At that moment the entire crowd gasped. Without a hurry, John walked right up to the priest and switched the horseshoe from his right to his left hand, showing that he was not burned, and threw the horseshoe at the feet of the red-cloaked priest. "Impossible," man exclaimed. He continued to use spiced craft yourself. John chuckled and said, "No, look at my robes. I too am a man of the gods, and I have proven this girl innocent for all to see." Once two lackeys of the Red Priest released the girl she introduces as Mia, I fell to the ground in tears of joy, thanking the group for saving her life. Elena kneeled down and hugged the poor girl. Even after surviving the spiced trial, the girl told the fellowship that she still needed their help. She said that she may not be spiced, but she had served the devil.